This meeting of the Littleton Licensing Authority will come to order. The City Clerk, please call the roll.
Authority Member Bradish.
Here.
Authority Member Gunya. Authority Member Odell.
Here.
Authority Member Cole.
Here.
Authority Member Mather.
Here.
Authority Member Levere.
Here.
Authority Member Peterson.
Here.
We do have a quorum in the absence of Authority Member Gunya. Alternate 1, Tim, will vote this evening.
Thank you.
Next item of business is election of officers. We have a chairperson and a vice chairperson. Both positions are up for nomination at this time. We'll start with the position of chairperson.
Yes, I'd like to make a nomination. I'd like to nominate Bill Bradish to be chair for this next term.
I second that.
Thank you. I am interested in running. Are there any other nominations? Time to vote. Would you poll the authority, please?
Authority Member Bradish.
Yes.
Authority Member Odell.
Yes.
Authority Member Cole.
Yes.
Authority Member Mather.
Yes.
Authority Member Levere.
Yes.
Thank you all for the vote of confidence. On the matter of vice chair, I have a letter from Earl Gunya, an email that he sent to the city clerk today, and 2 points that he makes. One is really important. The current chair and vice chair, our terms expire at the same time, and we feel like that's not really a good situation, that they should overlap somewhat for continuity purposes. And so Earl has asked that I place in nomination on his behalf Andrew Cole as vice chair. And I do so now. I nominate Andrew Cole. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Any other nominations? Poll the authority, please.
Authority Member Bradish.
Yes.
Authority Member Odell.
Yes.
Authority Member Cole.
Yes.
Authority Member Mather.
Yes.
Authority Member Levere.
Yes.
It is unanimous. Congratulations.
Congratulations
Thank you.
to
Appreciate
both of you.
Next item of business is approval of this agenda. I've reviewed the agenda. I don't see.
I'll move that we approve the agenda.
I second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item of business, approval of the minutes of our regular meeting from March 13th. Do we have any observations or comments about the minutes? I move that we approve the minutes as stated.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item, 6A, Celtic Group, LLC, doing business as Celtic Tavern at Riverside Downs. This is a scheduled renewal hearing.
I would ask for a motion to admit Exhibits A through F into the record.
I'll move that we submit Exhibits A through F into the record.
Second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
The issue before the authority is whether to schedule the renewal application for Celtic Group LLC doing business as Celtic Tavern at Riverside Downs, 2620 West Bellevue Avenue in Littleton for a public hearing. Routine liquor license renewals generally are handled administratively under Section 32-16 of the City Code. However, pursuant to Section 3B of the Licensing Authority Guidelines, if the Littleton Police Department renewal report or any other information obtained from other city departments indicates to the city attorney probable cause to believe there is good cause to refuse to renew, the city attorney has discretion to place the renewal application on the agenda, and then the issue before the authority is whether to schedule the renewal application then for a renewal hearing, which is a public hearing. No testimony will be taken, and the licensing authority shall base its decision solely upon the information provided. If the licensing authority decides to schedule the renewal application for a public hearing, the application shall be scheduled for the next available public hearing date following notice as required by Colorado Revised Statute. If not, the chairman shall be authorized to proceed with approving any renewal application that isn't scheduled for a public hearing by the licensing authority as part of this procedure. So I have attached to this agenda communication the renewal application for Celtic Group. And my concern was with the police reports that came in around St. Patrick's Day. There was several fights. I put this on the agenda before this St. Patrick's Day, and I did check with the police, and this St. Patrick's Day, they didn't have any problems. So if you want to take that into consideration. So if you find that probable cause exists to believe there may be good cause to refuse to renew the license, the renewal application should be set for a renewal hearing in May, a May 8, 2013 hearing date in accordance with the licensing authority guidelines.
Do we have anyone from the Celtic Tavern here?
You don't take any testimony as part of this proceeding?
Okay, I just wondered if anybody was here.
Oh, sorry. Don't believe so.
So can I confirm that at the time, nothing was submitted to us, right, as a potential violation?
Exactly.
Okay. So, I mean, as I read the reports, obviously having fights at bars is, a concern, but it looked to me like the only thing that there would be a potential violation would have been if the police hadn't been called, and I didn't see any evidence, obviously, in the report of that, and I'm assuming since it wasn't brought to us for a potential violation that the city didn't necessarily have any reason to believe that was the case. So,
It's a little confusing to read the officers' reports because they report being dispatched to the establishment, but we don't have any specific notation of who called. Was it a call from management of the tavern or a bystander or what? I think it's an important distinction. My assumption is, maybe incorrectly, that it was the establishment that called the police, which is required of them.
is that something that would normally, that the city would normally review? I mean, if there was a disturbance at a bar, police were dispatched, would the department look to see whether or not, because I mean, I guess I've always made that assumption because I don't know how else
Yeah.
a possible violation would come to us for not calling, unless it was on other matters and it was also one of the code violations that we took up.
I can't locate it in the reports right now, but I had the same concern as I was reading through the reports, and it was this evening, if memory serves, came upon a reference to the establishment having called the police in order to stop the fighting, for one thing, and we're calling the police. I wish I could locate that, but again, if memory serves, I did read a reference to the establishment as opposed to an individual patron or someone outside calling.
And I think that was actually in the first listed report, which is the second incident. In the second incident, and vice versa, the second matter it actually spilled into the parking lot before it started in the establishment, I believe.
Well, one of the reports, the first one, Officer Carlson, according to dispatch, there were approximately 7 to 8 people physically fighting inside the bar, and that the disturbance had moved into the parking lot. So it started inside and ended up outside. I can't find any,
That was my question, too. How, who called them?
Right. And I guess my inclination would be, and I don't know if I'm making an assumption I shouldn't, but again, I'm assuming that if it wasn't brought to us as a potential violation a year ago, that that we shouldn't pull them in unless we have reason to believe otherwise a year later. And so I would be inclined to approve it administratively unless I'm missing something.
I've looked at some references to some blood alcohol levels, and they were all within reason. I don't think anybody was really visibly intoxicated. So I don't see any reason why we should require them to come in. I would support. Would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that the renewal application for Celtic Group LLC doing business as Celtic Tavern at Riverside Downs, 2620 West Bellevue Avenue, Littleton, Colorado, be approved administratively by the chairman of the authority without the need for public hearing thereon.
I would second that.
Poll the authority, please.
Authority Member Bradish?
Yes.
Authority Member Odell?
Yes.
Authority Member Cole?
Yes.
Authority Member Mather?
Yes.
Authority Member LaVere?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Next item of business is findings of probable cause and show cause hearing for liquor code violations. Paragraph 10A, Tavern Littleton Incorporated doing business as Tavern Littleton, 2589 West Main Street. We have some police reports.
Just to clarify, this is a probable cause hearing for Tavern Littleton. I would ask for a motion to admit Exhibits A through C into the record.
I'll move that we enter Exhibits A through C into the record.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
James Byford, appearing on behalf of the tavern. I know this is a preliminary hearing and witnesses and testimony is not allowed, but before admitting those exhibits and those police reports, there's a statute about admissibility of PBTs. In any civil or criminal proceeding, I provided multiple copies to the city attorney beforehand, and I think that needs to, before anything's admitted, there's a statute directly on point about PBTs and their admissibility in any kind of proceeding, and I have copies of it, and I think that's relevant before, and they've already been provided, so we've rang the bell, but I don't believe these PBTs, well, number one, the results are not accurate at all, but they're just not admissible in a situation like this. And I have the statute, and I provided copies, I don't know how you can consider probable cause in this case without also knowing the statute and what the requirements are. You can give PBTs, but they're just not admissible in a case like this. And you got police reports that you're admitting, you're considering probable cause, and there's evidence in there that's just clearly, by statute, clearly not admissible. And if you would like to look at the statute, or I can refer to it, but I don't see how you can do a probable cause when you have a statute that says that PBT is not admissible without taking that in consideration.
I have a question and then a response. Of the city attorney, I would ask, is my understanding correct that there is a legal limit as to blood alcohol content for operating a vehicle? but there is not a legal blood alcohol level for being in public. The standard is intoxication, which is somewhat subjective. Is that correct?
Yes, it's visibly intoxicated is what we're dealing with. I do want to address the statute that council is referring to, and I'm happy to pass it out. My understanding of the statute is it deals with an officer taking a mechanical test of alcohol content on the premises. And our officers are trained to come out of the licensed premises to perform those tests. They're not done in the bar. They come out, and the reports indicate that the officers do that outside the licensed premises. And I'm happy to pass out the statute, but it talks about an officer shall not be allowed to, test the content of a person's blood or breath while such person is upon such licensed premises.
And then my comment
Well,
is that as to statute, in these cases, it is not as to blood alcohol content, but it is to visible intoxication.
Absolutely.
And that is the standard. And when I'm looking at a police report, and what concerns me here is that there was a police officer that went and spoke to this individual that observed signs of visible intoxication, slurring, redness of eyes, not being able to stand. These are all signs of visible intoxication, and at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm not concerned with the blood alcohol content as much as, not as much, but what I'm concerned is a matter of law, which is visible intoxication.
Well,
I'd be interested in seeing the statute, if someone has a copy.
I got copies.
We'll go ahead and mark it as Exhibit D, and I'll ask the deputy clerk
And while
to...
handing that out in response, what's not in these police reports, and for you to make your determination of probable cause, there's not a single reference to what that server saw. There's a report by the police officer a half hour later approximately that while the guy was standing up and while he was agitated, he showed signs of intoxication. What the officer saw a half hour later is irrelevant. I mean, it's relevant to what he saw.
Well, but Counselor, with all due respect, it's a probable cause hearing. It's not, and I understand that you're doing your best to keep your client from ever having to get there, but...
No, but there's nothing in there about anything that server saw. And she's being charged with serving someone visibly
Well, hold on.
intoxicated.
Now, are you now arguing with the admissibility of PBT, or are you arguing about a probable cause?
I'm jumping ahead because of the question. So let's go back to the
Okay,
PBT.
well, I think the procedure matters, and this is a probable cause hearing.
I understand.
We're
And
not...
I think the statute is relevant to the probable cause hearing. And what's important is, and there's a highlight at the top and a highlight at the bottom, but no person who is patronizing licensed premises, and I'm skipping, shall be required or solicited by any law officer to submit to any mechanical test for purpose of determining the alcohol content of such person's blood or breath. So it's...
While such person is upon the premises. You didn't finish the phrase. It's while the person is upon the premises.
Well, and in this case, it's obvious the interview started in the establishment. The test was solicited from a patron in the establishment. And he can give a test, but it's just not admissible in this proceeding for probable cause. It's not admissible for any purpose in this situation where the test was solicited by a person in a premise. And so the test itself is what can't be part of the probable cause.
So we won't use the test. We won't use PBT.
Oh, no.
But I think we're still going to continue on with our discussion as to whether there is probable cause. And we will do that as the authority. And you've made your point, and we'll proceed on without you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I just want to clarify that
Discussion,
my
from the
advice is that
city.
you can use the PBT. So I understand.
And so in this sense, what is admissible? I mean, what are we? Is it the fact that I've read it? Is it the fact that I've cited it in a reason for my vote tonight. I mean, what is the standard by which we're saying whether or not a PBT is admissible in court? Should that have been, I mean, I agree that the context of the statute matters, but if it were to not be admissible, what does that mean in this case?
Well, I suppose if you find that it should not be admissible, then you'd have to look at the remaining evidence and find that there's a reasonable belief that a violation has occurred looking at the remainder of the evidence. But I think that you are allowed to take that into consideration.
My opinion is that there is evidence that someone may have been overserved. And that is the issue that I think calls for a public discussion as to whether someone was overserved in violation of the code.
So, if we were to find a probable cause and move to a show cause hearing, the question of whether or not a PBT is admissible, would that come up there again, I'm assuming?
I would assume that would be handled at the preliminary hearing, which is when we usually do motions, and my guess would be that at that point, we would brief and argue that matter then.
And then it would be available to the authority to...
Right, to hear arguments on that issue and then decide that before it goes to show cause.
Okay. I mean, that would be my inclination to handle it that way, since that's the procedure. I mean, if members of the authority think there's probable cause in the police report to, find that a violation occurred, that would seem to me the appropriate time to address that issue.
I think we need to look into it a little bit more.
Well, as was pointed out, although this is not the time, because council started submitting evidence or arguing that the server is nothing indication what they saw. That is a matter for a show cause hearing where we can bring that server in and ask what they did or did not observe. This is not the occasion for that. I believe the police report has enough evidence into it to meet the bar level of probable cause and to have them come in for a show cause hearing.
I think I would agree that it warrants a hearing, and if the licensee doesn't think that a PBT should be admitted, I think the appropriate time to handle that would be at the next step in the process. And I think there's enough information in the report for probable cause regardless.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair. I move to find that there is probable cause to believe that Tavern Littleton, Inc., doing business as Tavern Littleton, 2589 West Main Street, Littleton, Colorado, on March 14th, 2013, at approximately 11:24 p.m., did violate the Colorado Liquor Code and the Littleton City Code, specifically Littleton City Code Section 3-2-10F and Colorado Revised Statute Section 12-47901. Based on said findings, I move that a public hearing be set for the June 12 of 2013 for the purpose of considering the status of said hotel and restaurant license, wherein the above mentioned licensee may be present to show cause, if any, why its license should not be suspended or revoked, and further that the notice of these findings and the hearing to show cause shall be forwarded to and served to Tavern Littleton, Inc., doing business as Littleton Tavern in accordance with the provisions of state law. I move that a preliminary hearing, if necessary, be set for May 8th, 2013, for the purpose of considering a possible stipulation, if any, between the licensee and the City of Littleton.
I second.
Is there any further discussion? Poll the authority, please.
Authority Member Bradish?
Yes.
Authority Member Odell?
Yes.
Authority Member Cole?
Yes.
Authority Member Mather?
Yes.
Authority Member Levere?
Yes.
Next item of business, paragraph 10B, Rocky Incorporated doing business as Super Discount Liquors, 60 West Littleton Boulevard.
This is a probable cause hearing for Rocky Inc. doing business as Super Discount Liquors. I would ask for a motion to admit Exhibits A through C into the record.
So we are present and interested. Nothing further.
Thank you.
I'll move that we enter Exhibits A through C.
I second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The issue before the authority is whether there is probable cause to believe that Rocky Inc. doing business as Super Discount Liquors of Littleton, 60 West Littleton Boulevard, violated the Colorado Liquor Code and Littleton City Code and should be scheduled for a public hearing to show cause, if any, why its license should not be suspended or revoked. This matter comes to the authority as a possible violation of the Colorado Liquor Code and Littleton City Code by licensee following the citation for an incident occurring on March 15th, 2013 at approximately 7:51 p.m. for a violation of the Littleton City Code 32-10F. Possible violations of the Colorado Liquor Code and Littleton City Code include Littleton City Code 3-2-10F, sale to intoxicated persons, and Colorado Revised Statute 1247-901. A copy of the case report 2013-001323 is attached for your review. I would remind the authority that the authority must find that there is a reasonable belief that a violation has occurred, but probable cause does not require sufficient evidence to show that a violation occurred. That is the purpose of the show cause hearing. Staff recommends that if the authority finds that probable cause exists sufficient to set the matter for a show cause hearing, the show cause hearing should be set in June to allow for a preliminary hearing to be held in May in accordance with the licensing authority guidelines.
Mr. Chairman, I think that if we read the police report that there's clear indication for probable cause. An officer was summoned because of a report of someone stumbling out on the road. When an officer arrived on scene, he saw an individual who he knew by name seemed to be intoxicated, unsteady. When he encountered the individual, there was indications that the individual was intoxicated. He saw him drinking a bottle in public, asked him where he got it. He pointed to Super Discount Liquors. When the police officer went in, the clerk indicated that he had stolen to him, but didn't think that he appeared intoxicated. The officer obtained and reports that in viewing the tape that the individual at the counter was a little unsteady and swaying on his feet. At the counter, an indication from the clerk that he was given instructions from the owner to sell anybody unless they came in and were just staggering and almost falling down. So I think there's just clear indication to set this for a show cause hearing.
I think if we fail to call this one in for a show cause hearing, we wouldn't call any in. It clearly calls for a show cause hearing, and I move that we do how's the wording here? I move to find that there is probable cause to believe that Rocky Incorporated, doing business as Super Discount Liquors of Littleton, 60 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Colorado, on March 15, 2013, at approximately 7:51 p.m., did violate the Colorado Liquor Code and Littleton City Code, specifically Littleton City Code 3-2-10F and Colorado Revised Statutes 12-47-901. Based on said findings, I move that a public hearing be set for June 12, 2013, for the purpose of considering the status of said hotel and restaurant license, wherein the above-mentioned licensee may be present to show cause, if any, why its license should not be suspended or revoked. And further, that notice of these findings and the hearing to show cause shall be forwarded and served to Rocky Incorporated, doing business as Super Discount Liquors, in accordance with the provisions of state law. I move that a preliminary hearing, if necessary, be set for May 18, 2013, for the purpose of considering a possible stipulation, if any, between the licensee and the city of Littleton.
Second the motion?
Poll the authority, please.
Authority Member Bradish?
Yes.
Authority Member Odell?
Yes.
Authority Member Cole?
Yes.
Authority Member Mather?
Yes.
Authority Member Lavier?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Next item of business, we skip all the way down to the general business, 18-A. Discuss the petition process, which we originally began discussing last week. Does the city clerk have anything to say about that?
I just hope that the authority had a chance to review both the original proposed process and the suggested modifications provided by authority members. And I wanted to find out what your input was so that we can try and get this finalized, so we have something to give our prospective licensees should they opt to do this process themselves.
I have a question. What is the meaning of the red type?
That is all of the suggested changes.
Okay.
So if you see anything crossed out, that was the original word. What's next to it is the proposed word. You'll see there are entire paragraphs that were added for better clarification. I will say most of my suggestions came from two authority members, from Authority Member Gunya and Authority Member Mather.
Thank you.
I had a question on, I guess it would be the paragraph below, paragraph number 3, on the draft, with the revised draft. So it says, second paragraph, or second sentence, a minimum of 200 eligible signatures is required to support the results of the petition. But then later in the paragraph, it says there is no set number. I'm guessing that was because you probably got two different
Correct.
ideas. So I think,
And you'll notice also that there was a suggestion that 600 door knocks be recorded, even though we pretty much determined at the last meeting that 500 was the standard within the industry.
so if I may, we as a board audit, or as an authority ought to decide if we are more concerned about signatures or door knocks, and if so, what those
Absolutely.
numbers are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because whatever we decide is what we're going to put into place, and you're going to need to be able to be comfortable with that if someone chooses to do this process by themselves. And we have one that is currently doing that, and another one who will be doing that. So we need to be very clear in our direction to these licensees who opt not to hire a petitioning service. So you need to decide what's more important to you, the door knocks or the signatures, the completions.
Does anyone remember, or do you remember on average how many, the petitions that come in from the professional services?
We rarely get 200. It's usually between 170 and 195,
Right.
and that's based on 500 door knocks.
Yeah, they always strive for 500 knocks, and
Right.
they come out right around 200.
A little
I've never
under
seen one go
200. I
over
don't think,
200.
I don't think I've seen one that's 200 plus. So,
So it sounds like we have to have at least 500 knocks to get around our 200.
and
Yeah.
what you may want to look at is a number of knocks, and of those knocks, what percentage you expect to see in completions. You know, but you have to realize that there will be people not home.
Right.
And
Right.
things like that. And so if we're doing 500 door knocks and we're getting just under 200 signatures, we're probably in, 43%, something like that, so.
So I would rather rely on a door knock number than a signature number, but I guess my primary concern is that we're not giving people guidance to ask them to do more than what the professional signature or petition gatherers would do. So I'd be inclined to go with 500 rather than 600 if we all think that 500 is probably the average that has come before us.
It seems to be what has come before us, and I'm good with 500.
I think 500's always worked when the professionals have done it, and I see no reason why the results would be different if they weren't professionals. If it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. Let's stick with 500
If you
and not
define,
specify a number of signatures.
if you define 500 door knocks and the signatures come down to 10%, is that going to be a problem? How do we rectify that?
We could always reject a petition and say that we don't think it is sufficient to show the needs of the neighborhood. So it's not like if they come in and they say, well, I knocked on 500 doors, we would have to accept it.
Okay.
But that raises a good question. Should we say that, or should we even say that historically or the authority often sees petitions that...
I would be afraid to do that because I'd be afraid of people maybe trying to force the numbers.
Right.
I think historically they've done the 500 door knocks in the area, and we tend to get between, like I said, 170 to 195 from that. And there are other things that are going to play into that depending on the time of the year, if a lot of people are on vacation, is it a holiday weekend, those kinds of things. So we're going to have to look at the dates that the petitions were circulated as well to determine if that really is a viable percentage based on the business, the neighborhood, those kinds of things.
I agree. I think all the authority members would like to see as many signatures, obviously, as possible. But I think the effort of doing those door knocks, because those going out seeking those signatures can't determine who is or is not home. And as Authority Member Cole has pointed out, if that percentage would fall suspiciously below what we see as an average number, as an authority, we have no obligation to accept that. We can ask them to go back and do that again.
Absolutely.
And I do think that, the current draft says, the current revised draft says there is no set number of required signatures you must obtain, but you must provide the authority with sufficient evidence to support a finding that the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood establish a need for the issuance, which I think, and maybe it's worth even adding a sentence to say, if you have knocked on 500 doors but don't feel like you have a sufficient number of signatures to provide this, you may feel free to knock on more doors.
Well, I think if we say a minimum of 500 door knocks, then that leaves it open for them to make that determination. I mean, I think a rational person who does 500 door knocks, if they end up with 90 signatures, they're going to realize that's not a sufficient representation of the neighborhood. I mean, that would be my assumption. But.
Yeah, there has to be some judgment involved.
And
in
we
it.
can't do everything for them. All we're asking is, I want to give them some guidelines, but I think if we get too rigid, then it becomes very difficult to enforce on a case-by-case basis.
I would agree, and I think I think 500 door knocks is sufficient, and if we see many, petitions that people are doing on their own with 500 and they're very low, we could always revisit the guidance.
Absolutely.
But I would feel comfortable with that.
Then we would strike that sentence that says a minimum of 200 eligible signatures
Right,
is required.
it would be one or the other,
Right.
Yep.
right.
On paragraph 2, I have no problem with the additions. Have circulator sign the affidavit of circulator page for his and indicating the whole thing. The only thing I would change in there, it says each signature is the signature of the person whose name it purposes to be. I think that's purports.
Right, and I just
to
pulled
be.
this directly from how it was sent to me, but yes.
Yeah, and with that change, I think the wording is fine.
Okay. Then in section 3, we'll strike the minimum of 200 eligible signatures, if that's the way we decide to go.
Right.
And then keep the wording in that there is no set number of required signatures you must obtain on a petition. But you must provide the authority with sufficient evidence to support a finding that the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood establish a need for the issuance, blah, blah, blah.
And we'll change 600 to 500 for door
right.
knocks.
And otherwise, I liked on the signature page itself, I like the additions, moving that print name underneath, making clear its street address, so they didn't feel like they needed to fit their whole address in there. So,
So you're okay with the signature page?
yeah, I
As
liked
is.
it. I thought it was.
I did too. That was a question I had last week, was why they don't have people print their names, because it's hard to tell who somebody is. So I like that change.
Okay. Is there anything else that jumps out at anyone?
I had a couple typos I circled. Can I just hand those to you?
Look, that's okay.
Can we? Do you want us to make a formal motion, and approve it, or do you want to? Do we need to do that?
I don't think we need to do the formal motion. Do you, Kristen?
I mean, we can. This is information the clerk's office hands out to just assist, and I think she just wanted your input so that we don't tell applicants one thing and then they come before you and you say, I mean, just, I think it's.
Yeah, I wanted your buy-in on it, because if you have the ultimate responsibility of reviewing that petition and either accepting it or declining it, then I wanted you to have input into what that structure was going to look like, versus just myself making an arbitrary decision, or myself with the city clerk, or myself, the city clerk, and the chairman making the decision that this is adequate. I think that it's something the board really needs to have input into, but I don't think it needs to be an actual motion to approve it. I think this is going to be a work in progress, because I think that as people use it, if they use it, we'll find things each time that maybe we need to tweak and change and things like that.
I think the bottom line is it's the city clerk's responsibility to develop this and work it. And
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of having someone come to me and saying, I'd like to do my own petition, and not have something to hand them so that they know what that's supposed to look like. Because I know that as an authority, you guys, you read these, start to finish, and you really do review them. And I don't want to set someone up for failure.
I think this looks very comprehensive and user-friendly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think by avoiding a formal vote, I think that gives you the leeway to amend and improve it as needed as a living document.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, so that we have something that's viable for our licensees.
So thank you for
I think as
all
I
your
read
work
through
on
this,
this.
I'd be strongly tempted to hire somebody.
I think most people would. However, we can't make that call
That's
for
not our
them.
goal, but
We can't make that call for
certainly
them.
serves that purpose.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Colleen, for doing it. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next item of business, 18B, the August 2013 meeting status.
As you guys know, our August meeting, we're usually bumped from this room because of Carousel of Music, Western Welcome Week, the whole thing. Last year, we ended up making it a study session. We held it at the courthouse. And I think we all kind of talked at that time, maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek about maybe we just don't have one in August. And so that's kind of what I wanted to get a feel. If we end up with an actual meeting in August, the downstairs room at the courthouse is not going to be sufficient. And if they put us upstairs, we have a security risk because we have to leave that front door unlocked. And we don't know who's coming in and out or who's left in the building when we lock up. So thoughts?
My thought is that we plan on not having a meeting in August as a regular, normal course of business, unless there's a pressing matter that comes up that has to be on that night.
Kristen, how do you feel
Like a
about that?
probable cause or show cause or something like that. I mean, can we just pick a different night that month so we have something in?
I mean, we certainly could. We would have to, if we opt to do it on a different night that month, first of all, I'd have to make sure the council chamber is available. And then at our May meeting, we would have to make an official motion to move the August meeting to a different night. So that's an option as well.
I'd like to have that as an option just because I wouldn't want to, since our process is a little bit longer now.
Don't want to overload the September hearing?
Well, and just, I mean, if we were to get, if we had a potential probable cause question in August, we skipped it, that puts probable cause in September, preliminary hearing in October. So we could be like 4
Right.
or 5 months out
Right.
from when something would have happened.
Right.
And I know that from some of our other cases, that's when people come in and, you know, you have questions about remembering it right. So it would be nice to have an option should we have a probable cause.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys have had we've had business at every meeting.
We have.
So it seems like we probably should anticipate that August we will have business.
I would ask if we're going to change it, if we could maybe move it back to the next Wednesday.
Like the third Wednesday?
Correct, for that month.
Okay, I'd have to see what the schedule is, but if that's not a conflict, I could certainly do that. And then we can make a motion at the next meeting to make it official.
Yeah, I'd like
That
to
way
just
we-
do
that
the
way
same
we
thing
can
every year,
notify-
whatever we come up with.
Yeah, that way we can notify the public timely, and it's on the website, and those kinds of things. I just would like to make sure that there's enough notice, which is why we're talking about August in April.
Would everyone else be all right with that next week if it's clear?
Sure.
The next Wednesday?
Yes.
Probably.
I mean,
Sure.
I would suggest
Let's all check our phones.
having 3 dates readily available at the next meeting so that the best date can be picked,
Okay.
whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of the following week.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
I'll take a look at the calendars and see, and then we'll discuss it further at the next meeting.
sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't need a motion on that until the July.
Not until we actually decide to postpone or reschedule.
Right.
Right now, we're just discussing options.
Anything else?
Is that sufficient for your discussion, City Clerk?
Absolutely.
I see no further business to be conducted tonight, so
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, could, in anticipation of a possible brief at the preliminary hearing, could we get a memo from the city attorney's office on
The PBT.
1247-902?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
It's on
you.
my to-do list.
Thanks.
yeah, and I recommend everybody read the statute that was handed to us.
Definitely.
And do your best to understand it.
And I would have had it, I was presented with this 10 minutes before the hearing, so otherwise I would have had a memo for you had I known it was coming down the pike, so.
Great, thank you.
Further? This meeting is adjourned.